Hello everybody. Welcome to today's SAP Community Call. My name is Julia Rousseau, part of the SAP Community team, and I'm your host during this call. Our topic of the session is Hidden Gems, how to structure end-to-end processes across platform boundaries with SAP Intelligent RPA and document processing. As always, this call is a recorded session and you will be able to access all replays of previous SAP Community Call and of course this call at community.sap.com under the Events tab. Our speakers for this session are Vladimir Shakov, Stefan König, and Alexander Haug. In this webinar, the speakers will show how to use SAP Intelligent RPA in combination with SAP Invoice Management and SAP Information Capture by OpenText for an end-to-end automation of an example use case. Now, before I hand over, I would like to make you aware of the Q&A button where you can already raise questions during the presentation down below. Afterwards, we reserve some time to answer as many questions as we can during this call. So, Stefan, the stage is yours from now.
Thank you so much, Julia. And together with my colleagues, Vladimir and Alex, I would like to welcome everyone. I think we switch off the video now in order to allow for more bandwidth and to reserve everything for audio track and the presentation. So bear with us. Very warm welcome from my side as well. I'm Stefan König. I'm part of the Solution Management Go-to-Market team within the Intelligent Robotic Process Automation product unit in SAP. And I am especially looking after partner-related activities. So together with my colleagues, I would like to run you through a showcase that we created for as part of the partnership between OpenText and SAP. And we want to give you a little bit of background around that and also more insight, including a presentation about the showcase in the course of this presentation. And on the first slide, I would like to start out with giving you a little bit context. That is on the one hand side, the business context, but also, let's say, the portfolio context. As you can see here, this is more or less part of the portfolio of our so-called business technology platform, BTP, which consists of, in the end, several portfolios that are dealing with all kinds of functionality and solutions around, for example, data management, but also integration pieces, which come from, on the one hand side, the development side, but also a technical integration, which could be system to system or even platform to platform integration, but also things like system integration across process steps and processes, like, for example, in business process management. On the other hand side, we have analytical capabilities that is really everything around analytics and reporting. And then we have the so-called intelligent technologies, where intelligent RPA is a part of, and also things like, for example, conversational AI, so chatbot functionality and so on, or IoT. If we now look at this part here, the process excellence piece, that really spans across the whole, let's say, process chain, from understanding existing processes, which can be things like, for example, process mining, across the integration of pieces. As I just mentioned, we have an own portfolio around that, which deals with system integration, cloud integration, and so on. Then it's around the build part of new processes, which can also include, for example, business process management, up to automation of certain parts and the monitoring across it. Yeah. And of course, as you can see here highlighted, our solution case is in that area of automation part. Which includes automating, on the one hand side, process steps and processes, but also with a clear focus on user and user tasks. That is the main aim of intelligent robotic process automation. And if we can see on the next slide, let's say the definition of RPA as we have it, intelligent RPA, then it's really the automation and the triggering of task and user related process steps. As I said, we can look at the broader scope of integrating across systems. We can look at integrating certain processes or process chains. But if we look down to the RPA piece, then this is really very user centric and very user assistant like. So we are covering with our platform the two cases of unattended and attended scenarios. Unattended really means you have a fully automated execution of a bot where the bot really autonomously is being triggered by API or by a schedule, for example, and runs completely without intervention. On the other hand, you have a attended scenario where the bot is a so-called digital coworker or digital assistant. That means the user is triggering a process and is running through a process, but for a certain step or a certain subtask of this process, the user can then involve a bot. The bot runs, delivers a certain result, hence the result back to the user, and then the user can carry on with the process. So we really are aiming and looking at these two different scenarios on the same platform and with the same functionality and setup that we have. If we now go one step deeper and look at the solution itself, then this is a very schematic view here, but I'll try to run you through it. On the left-hand side, you can see the three big parts of our solution, which is on the one hand side, and I start at the bottom, the orchestration and monitoring piece, which we call Cloud Factory. That's really a piece of software or a piece of the part of the solution sitting on the SAP Cloud Platform. And this one is important and responsible for running on the one hand side, really the management of bots, like the scheduling, the deployment, and so on. But on the other hand, is also responsible for the monitoring. That means checking whether bot run is successful or not. If not, then giving some information what happened and so on. On the left-hand side, the studio, this is the design time. This is where the bot setup, the bot development happens, and where you really define the workflow that the bot carries out. And yeah, this one is responsible for the whole setup piece. On the right-hand side, you have the runtime, the so-called agent, which can run on the one hand side on the desktop of the user, as I said, for example, in an unattended scenario, where the user explicitly clicks a button and runs the bot in order to get a specific task fulfilled, or in unattended scenario where it runs on a server and is being triggered by a schedule, for example, or an API trigger. On the right-hand side, you can see the parts that we automate and where we integrate into. And this integration can happen more or less with two different options. On the one hand side, via technical interface API, where you really have a technical integration. On the other hand side, we have UI automation. That means what happens on the screen is being captured and is being translated into a workflow and runs as if a human being would really run it on the screen. Yeah? And this we do with, of course, all kinds of SAP applications. So of course, our aim is to be the best in class for SAP, for automating SAP functionality and SAP solutions. But we also deal a lot with non-SAP applications. And that can be, for example, office products that can be like Excel, which is a very, very prominent case. That can also be web applications, portal pages, and so on. So all this we are really taking into account and using it for our automation scenarios. And now on the next slide, we try to capture a little bit, let's say, the strength and the capabilities that we bring to the table, especially also when looking at the showcase that we have here and that that this webinar is all around. So on the one hand side, it's really around making the operational part better, improving the operational part by enabling users to concentrate on exceptions, to concentrate on the higher value tasks. So not waste their time with copy and paste, for example, but have this being carried out by a bot, for example, in an automated fashion. And then only if there's exceptions, then the human being should intervene and should have a look at the exceptional case. Also by this, saving time to create the quality of service, for example, or to increase also the effectiveness by being more responsive and by being able, for example, in a call center scenario, to handle more calls and therefore enhance end customer satisfaction. Next thing is reduction of errors. Of course, copy and paste, for example, or taking numbers from one part and putting them into some other part of the application is a very tedious task. It's boring, and yeah, the less you pay attention, the higher is the possibility that errors occur. So freeing up people from that very boring task is really also a means to reduce error-prone processes and process steps. And the next thing is then also with that, you really have a lever in order to reduce the cost of your operations and of your service handling, for example, by using this as the automation piece as a kind of foundational technology. That means leverage it everywhere where it really makes sense, and base everything that you do also on the paradigm to try to automate as much as possible, but also reserve the more powerful and the more, let's say, intelligent cases for the human beings to have them handle those. And with that, with this very astronomic and outer space view, I would like to hand it over to Vladimir to give the OpenText perspective with regards to that, before we then conclude with Alex into the joint showcase. So with that, over to you, Vladimir.
Thank you, Stefan, for the great introduction to our presentation, to the showcase today, and to the RPA story. From my perspective, I would cover SAP Invoice Management, but probably before we go into that, I would like to shortly introduce myself. For those of you on the call that hadn't met me before, my name is Vladimir Shakov. I'm working with OpenText, and I'm responsible for go-to-marketing and strategic activities related to several OpenText products which are located on the SAP price list. Why I'm mentioning that, located on the SAP price list? Probably when we move to our points, that's a very important thing to mention, because we're not just a partner of SAP. We're a partner who is focusing on solution extensions. And solution extensions are actually products which are premium qualified by SAP. They are fully tested and fully supported by SAP. So the first and the second level of the support is actually done through SAP. And that shows how closely and how deeply integrated we are with SAP solutions. And maybe to the first point with that, we are with Invoice Management a premium solution which is fully designed using SAP technology and which sits actually on top of SAP. So it's not even a solution, it's probably a solution extension. It extends the standard functionality of SAP and is very closely working together with the solutions. And why I'm saying that, in today's world, it's actually very important for a customer which are trying to reduce the complexity of IT landscapes to have something which is deeply integrated, which can be supported by the same IT team without having to learn new languages, new ecosystems, new ways of supporting. And because we're so deeply integrated, it is actually supported by the same people who do support the ERP system. Another thing about invoice management, And I'm going to go a bit more in details on the next slides. But another thing about vendor invoice management, it's actually a specialized solution. So we do focus on processing incoming SAP related documents. And we do the processing from the very beginning to the very end. We specialize on that and we do it very good. And of course, because of that and based on what we're going to show today, thought it's a good idea to show to you how we actually cooperate with SAP IRPA and what advantages one can get out of such cooperation. And on the next slide, before we go into details, I'm going to focus a bit on the challenges and why actually it's important to introduce solutions like SAP IRPA and SAP Invoice Management for a company today in the modern environment. We all hear about digitalization and other trends, and actually with the current situation in the world, companies are as keen as they never were before to actually optimize their operations, to reduce some costs and to introduce additional efficiencies for them to be more efficient and of course more profitable. And we don't see the data on the slide, but I can share with you that actually 80% of incoming documents today worldwide are being processed on paper. And this is a catastrophe for a modern company because it's so inefficient, it causes errors, and of course it delays payments or maybe even leads to customer unsatisfaction. That's why many companies today introduce automation tool. They want to streamline the operations, they want to reduce the number of errors. And of course, as we would show to you today, processing incoming documents is not rocket science. If you do it correctly, and according to the industry best standards, then actually you can do it very efficiently and you can save costs and you can allow employees, instead of focusing on routine tasks that are boring and actually not bringing real value, you can allow them to focus on essential things which bring value to the company. And on the next slide, actually going to see that invoice management can process pretty much any incoming SAP document inside SAP. And because of that, it's not only, as the very popular misconception says, popular among finance and procurement departments which process incoming invoices. It's actually very popular in almost every line of business in every department, because with the new version of invoice management, we can actually process sales orders, delivery notes, and many other document types we're going to see on the later slides. But of course, as I mentioned, 80% of incoming documents today are on paper, and that's prohibiting efficient business not only in finances or procurement, it's actually prohibiting efficient business anywhere. Just as an example, take HR. They also receive CVs or sick notes also on paper, and to enter something like that into the system can take up to 6 minutes. On the next slide, we're going to see a typical process which runs and the stages that we actually cover with invoice management. It's basically everything from capturing an incoming document, and it can be standardized sources of information with standard attachments, input, and structured information inside like emails. However, like in this example, it can be not typical and not standardized sources of information attachments, which cannot be classified by OCR, and where we would need help of something intelligent, in this case, Intelligent RPA, which can recognize data and which can actually help us capture this data. And again, to IRPA, it can be actually introduced at each and any stage of the process, as well as at the capturing stage, but basically also on the processing stage, where something happens that needs additional attention and more automation. However, let's focus on the invoice management. So as I already mentioned, we can capture data from any incoming source, pretty much, and we can process it inside of SAP. If it goes beyond of SAP and needs to be processed or maintained in another system, then of course we also rely on help of SAP RPA, but because we are a solely SAP solution sitting on top of SAP. And the next slide, please. And here, as I mentioned already before, the first generation of SAP Invoice Management was able to process incoming invoices. And we were very good at that with the knowledge base of many different formats, styles, rules, and exceptions. We could actually start being productive from day one and actually process 80 plus invoices automatically from the first day. However, all of our customers said that they not only have incoming invoices, they have at least 8 to 10 different formats of documents that they would like to automate in SAP. And because of that, we made the decision beginning of the year that we would actually expand the capabilities of SAP Invoice Management to cover also other documents. And in today's example, we're going to see how, together with SAP IRPA, we efficiently automate the processing of an incoming purchase order and create a sales order in an SAP system. However, I'm not going to touch the case because that's the bread and butter of Alex, and he's going to cover that. Just keep in mind that actually SAP Invoice Management is much more than it was before. We can cover different document types. And of course, it's very beneficial for a customer because automating document processing inside a system is something that you don't want to cover using 2 or 3 different applications. You need one consistent application in order to do that, which can be easily scaled and which can be extended to other document types after you automate 1 or 2 document types with which you decide to start. So we can do that. Next slide, please. And of course, I was running ahead of time, even not ahead of time, but I was solely focusing on SAP IRPA, not SAP Invoice Management, sorry. But today in the webinar, we actually want to show to you how the 2 solutions after the introduction I and Stefan have made are working together and what additional advantages you can actually get out of this collaboration. And with that, I would like to pass the word to Alexander Haug so he can introduce you to the joint case.
Vladimir, Stefan, thanks a lot for the great introduction of RPA and SAP Invoice Management by OpenText. So basically, my name is Alexander Haug. I'm working as a senior developer on the Intelligent Robotic Process Automation product in SAP's headquarters located in Walldorf. So I'm focusing on development for third-party integration, but also for the mentioned runtime, which takes care of management and executing our RPA bots on the respective scenarios. All right, based on the things we have heard so far, I'd like to give you a further introduction about the scenario we covered to present the strength of both solutions. So the scenario we are having a look at is about sales opportunities tracking. This means we focus on generating leads and tracking those. Basically, this means that sales orders are being generated based on incoming purchase orders. And typically this is being done with company systems of record, like an S/4HANA system, for instance, an ERP system. Moreover, it's really important to maintain touch points you and your organization have with a customer relationship management system. So in our case, we are really focusing on the SAP Cloud for Customer system, which basically is part of the C/4HANA software portfolio. So let's concentrate on the process and the respective tasks necessary to really get a holistic overview of maintaining the incoming purchase orders and convert them into sales orders. So this means that opportunities maintained within the SAP Cloud for Customer systems, they need to be mapped to created sales orders located within the S/4HANA system. One system concentrates on the transactional behavior. So this basically is the S/4HANA system, which is typically a sample of a system for records. And the other system, SAP Cloud for Customer, maintains touch points and interactions related to data with the customer base of your organization. To really get a transparent business process in place, it is really, really important to map and synchronize information from both systems. However, maintaining and exchanging data between the two systems, so the ERP system and the CRM system, this can be very time consuming. Also, it's a very simple task. And this is something, as Stefan already mentioned, which we can tackle by using robotic process automation. As the process or the process execution is pretty simple, but it's still pretty error prone, as humans tend to produce errors by executing tasks which are monotonous or like the one described here. In addition to that, we also focus on the process, which is quite common. This means especially at the end of the quarter, the customer send really a lot of purchase orders if your business runs good and request goods or services. To close the quarter, it's really crucial to book and map the respective sales orders with opportunities as soon as possible, so that you can have a real-time analysis for your financial reporting. As a result, you might not be able to control the organization in retail if you're not able to handle this high volume of incoming purchase orders in an error-free processing by making use of such a process. And this is why we thought it might be really helpful to demonstrate how such a process can be automated. But before having a look on that, let's have a further look into the detailed tasks being necessary to fulfill this process, as I explained. So first, you typically, and this is based on our experience, you receive an email with a purchase order being attached from your customer. An employee of our organization opens this email, recognizes the attachment, and creates the respective business object here, the sales order, within the S/4HANA system. For this, the employee needs to recognize the relevant reference, like customer reference, also the Incoterms, which describe special conditions attached to the sales order, and of course, the overall amount of the order. The sales order finally gets created in the system, and the employee typically copies a lot of information from the received purchase order and creates the corresponding sales order. So this is a task which is pretty simple. If you don't really focus on that, it might be also error prone as you mess it up within the system of records by copying the wrong values. Followed by this step, lots of customers make use of Excel. So this is indicated with the spreadsheet here. So the Excel file, or within the Excel file, the customers track additional information about the created sales orders and the corresponding opportunity, which are part of the CRM system. So this is kind of something which lots of customers use to mash up data. On the one hand side, from information stored in the S4 system, and on the other hand side, information stored within the CRE system. As I said before, however, it's really important to get the opportunities on the one hand side created, but on the other hand side, based on the sales order updated, so that there's an indicator that this opportunity have been won by the respective account executive. And this is being done by the employee manually. So based on the information being put into the spreadsheet, the information about the sales order and the respective opportunity being stored is updated so that the indicator is up to date for one opportunity. The next step then is that within the CRM system, we not only persist information about the customer, but we also persist information about the responsible account executive who really initiated and transferred the lead to a sales order and to one opportunity. And it's really important to fetch those contact details of the responsible employee, as we in the next step need to inform the account executive about the one opportunity so that he or she knows that, basically the customer sent over a purchase order and that we sold something to this customer. This is done by the next step. So basically the employee being responsible for updating the respective entry within the CRM system, here the SAP Cloud for Customer system, writes an email based on the manually fetched contact details and sends this email to the account executive. So as you can see here, there are a lot of manual tasks. You have a lot of touch points with different systems. So we have the S4, which means the SAM, the ERP system. We do have Excel. We do have the CRM system. We do have Outlook. So there's a variety of touch points. It's a very heterogeneous process from a tools point of perspective. And now we want to get further insights how to really automate this, which affects or takes into effect that these kind of applications need to be accessed by using the several data. So let's see how this works. So what we did, basically, we developed 2 RPA bots. Let me focus on the first RPA bot to tell you what it does. So basically, the first RPA bot opens Outlook and search for all relevant emails, which means the attachment of this email is coming from a customer and contains a specific purchase order. This can be achieved, for instance, by filtering the mails based on subjects or on information located within the email body. The bot opens then the attachment and hands it over to the SAP Invoice Management by OpenText. And this can be basically achieved by using a REST endpoint of the system to hand over the context-specific information, including the purchase order, so the attachment. The system in the next step accepts the extracted context-related information, which means the attachment, and processes the document, here the purchase order. In fact, this means an optical character recognition, in short OCR, is being performed. It scans the purchase order, extracts the relevant information, validates this information, and finally creates the sales order, which then gets represented as business object inside the S/4HANA system. So this is basically quite already a huge step in terms of automating this process, but we go one step further. As you remember, the process consists not only of creating the sales order, but also creating and updating the CRM system and the Excel file. So this basically is done by a second bot we've developed. The second bot gets initiated by calling a so-called API trigger. The API trigger accepts context-specific information again, coming this time from the SAP Invoice Management by OpenText and the validated data. And in the next step, creates on the one hand side, updates the Excel file, and on the one hand side, updates also the CRM system with the one opportunity. In addition to that, we also access Outlook and put the respective information inside an email and send it out to the responsible account executive. So this is being achieved on the one hand side by making use of dedicated APIs we access, by making use of Intelligent RPA, but also, I mean, a good approach when it comes to robotic process automation, accessing user interface artifacts to automate their respective tasks, especially when it comes to the CRM system, to find the opportunity, to update the opportunity, and to fetch the respective contact information of the responsible account executive. All in all, this scenario is a huge benefit from our perspective in process automation for invoice management and opportunity tracking. And I mean, having said this, I hope I could give you a good example about the process, about the business context. And what we see next is a small video where we demonstrate how we executed this and how this looks in action.
Still relying on manual order processing across multiple systems that aren't fully integrated? Increase the degree of end-to-end automation with SAP Intelligent RPA and SAP Information Capture by OpenText. Automated sales order management ensures your data works for you optimally and saves time through reduction of manual order processing. But what can you add to the mix to fully transition to end-to-end automation? Apply SAP Invoice Management in combination with SAP Intelligent RPA. Let's say, for example, sales managers are tracking opportunities in Excel. They are wasting time with this repetitive manual task, whereas automation of tracking with SAP Intelligent RPA results in timely and efficient workflows. An SAP Intelligent RPA bot scans unread emails relevant for the automated order processing. Then the respective attachment is stored and handed over to SAP Invoice Management to create the corresponding sales order. This way, sales orders are instantly received in SAP Invoice Management and sent to SAP Information Capture, which extracts all fields and determines details. Underlying rules can identify a mismatch of Incoterms and determine the correct order entry specialists to handle it. As the OCR recognition was correct, the specialist can run a simulation to verify the deviation, which then gets accepted. Compared to the past, the specialist focuses on the few exceptions. All the other orders are being booked automatically. No mailbox monitoring, data entry, no delays. Customers benefit from accelerated order processing, better feedback at all levels, and a reduced impact of errors in the process. Then a second SAP Intelligent RPA bot is notified about the details, including the total amount and reference to the opportunity or quotation. The bot searches and navigates to the opportunity and sets the status to 1, gets the email addresses of colleagues in charge, and then updates the total amount to the opportunity within the Excel file. Finally, a notification is sent to the team in charge via email. As the result, the process with its touchpoints in SAP and non-SAP solutions is seamlessly automated, which leads to more efficient order processing with less errors and higher customer satisfaction. All in all, the end-to-end automation is straightforward and transparent. It's easy to integrate and configure, and reusing existing tools. More automation, less tedious and repetitive processes. Data working for you.
All right, with that, I hand it back over to Stefan. I'm giving you some further context and information about several materials and further sources.
Thanks a lot, Alex, for this great insight. Yes, I would like to conclude a little bit this session, or this part at least, by pointing out a few sources of information, and a few resources that we have placed there. You can see here all kinds of links around product information and so on. A few things I would like to highlight, and maybe also Vladimir, if you want to add something after that, please feel free. So I would like to point out, first of all, the Open SAP courses, because they are a great source of information, not only for enablement and for learning the let's say the solution, but also for gaining more insight and getting more product knowledge, for example, within the what's new sections, or with the content around the standard bots and the standard content that we are delivering from SAP side for S4 bots. So you can learn a lot here through the Open SAP courses. Of course, one thing I want to especially point out is our community pages. So we really have a very lively community. We're we're posting quite a few blog posts there. We have video tutorials and so on, a lot of content linked there. But also one thing that really makes us happy and proud is that the community itself picks up more and more pace. That means it's not only people asking questions on the community, but also community members starting to also reply to questions and answer questions. So that the community life is really getting more and more traction. So I would like to encourage all of you, look into the community pages, check out the links, the video tutorials, and so on, to get more information around Intelligent RPA. One thing I want to also mention, we have a free trial system that you can use on the one hand side for enablement, for example, via the Open SAP courses, but also to try out things, to familiarize yourself with the solution, and to, for example, try out things that you can see in the video tutorials. And again, please use all the social channels to interact with us, to get new information, to get knowledge about additional webinars, sessions, etc. Probably also you will see more from OpenText and Intelligent RPA in the near future. Let's see. Yeah, so I would again like to point out and encourage everybody to check it out and make use of this rich offering of information sources. And with that, I would like to hand over to Vladimir for some information sharing. And then I think after that, we can open it up for questions and answers. Over to you, Vladimir.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Alexander. It was a wonderful introduction demonstration. I'm very excited personally to see the next steps, because this was the first step that we discovered for ourselves. Of course, it's only an example of how we can actually combine the two solutions. And we're currently working on more ways, because SAP IRP is a very powerful technology. And as Stefan has already said, I'm confident that actually it can very much expand the usage of SAP invoice management and information capture, and any of the customer that uses the solutions together can actually profit from those solutions. Here I have gathered some information for your notice. All of that are actually SAP resources, so feel free to check them. There's some videos, some additional resources, and of course, I'm always there. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Stefan or to Alexander. And with that, probably I would suggest that we move to the Q&A session.
So thank you very much, Stefan, Vladimir, and Alex, for the great presentation and your great input. So there are a few questions in the Q&A section, and I already saw that Vladimir and Alex answered some. So maybe you want to answer some here live in the webinar. That would be great. And I'm going to stop the recording now.